Hello, my name is Aset Ordobaev. I am a research fellow, junior research fellow in Eurasia Research Institute, and today I would like to talk about the cooperation in pandemic period. This theme is particularly interesting for me because I am the part of the research group with our team in our researching the question of new trends in integration. And first of all, I need to explain that here we usually use a phrase integration, which means multilateralism. So sometimes we will use the integration as because integratsia in Russian language, we usually translate direct translation and using the word integration, and usually in the Western academic sphere, it's usually using multilateralism, but sometimes it's a difficult one for me, so that's why I will use integration. So I would like to talk about three things today. The first is, of course, a bit about what's happening in the world, a cooperation between states in the pandemic period. Second thing about the globalization, and third thing, which we will talk about the because the integration is a part of globalism. So we will talk about globalization, and I will talk about what's happening with integration because we have different opinion about this thing. So first of all, we need what we know. Now we have a severe crisis. A lot of people, a lot of experts using this is the severest crisis from the period of World War II. The influence to the economy, to the social life, to the all humankind is a very huge. What we know that experts, for example, we will use here the Henry Kissinger in his article in Financial Wall Street Journal, saying that the world wouldn't be the same. And he mean that not the world order wouldn't be the same. And he explained this so that everything will change in case of the. First of all, he speaking from the U.S. point of view that if United States want to be a leader in the post-COVID world, they must to do something. And this is about the crisis of leadership in today's world. And what we see, first of all, the problem, the crisis of globalization. First, what we know that globalization is a huge process, yes, and this process is in different sphere, economic, culture, people-to-people relations, society, political. So we here need to understand two things about the globalization as a process, as a globalization as a theory, and this theory explain that the globalization is a process and have different sphere. So what we know about the different sphere now, everything is stopped now because the pandemic, quarantine, countries is closed. And second thing, what we now see that the primate, the idea of the nation state is come back of this idea because we see that all countries close the borders based on their land borders, the physical land borders. They close the land air borders. You cannot travel. That's the second thing what we know about that. We have an economic sphere. It's of course the disruption of the supply chains. So what we see now, it's a problem of globalization as a process, a lot of things stopping, and this bring us to idea about the end. For example, the idea of the nation state, the importance of nation state, that the nation state is only one effective mechanism to stop this COVID-19. For example, about nation state, the importance of nation state. Speaking, the Russian IT advisor, special advisor, Mr. Dmitry Peskov, the same name as a press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, but it's different persons. So he's saying that maybe globalization is stopping, then the importance of nation state, and he is going on he's talking about this idea. This is not new idea, of course. In the discourse, the renaissance of the nation state, the idea of the nation state, is start growing after the economic crisis in 2008, when some governments, for example, United States, show the effectiveness, the regulation measures, and something like that. And it's starting the point of the globalization. It's a problem for the economy, because the crisis starting in the United States spread all the world, and on this idea is starting growing the new populists. We call them new populists because the idea of this new populists was bring the importance of the nation, the sovereignty of the nation, and they started to talk about this and starting growing. And what we see now in a lot of countries, they on power. In Poland, Hungary, we see this in Brazil, in India, the concept of the nation state, the importance of nationality, the of country is very important. So we see this process. They started in 2008, and a lot of people are saying that the huge example of success of this idea was the Brexit, because European Union was the main example of what is the cooperation, what is integration. European Union, it's a unique case of integration, and a lot of different organizations try to use example of this organization and create the integration. This is the first thing. The first thing. So we see that the world from 2008 starting growing idea of nationalism, and this COVID-19, how to say, some ideologists of this, some supporter of this idea is saying that this is a very successful idea. This is an effective idea, not total. This is an effective idea because nation state only can be effective in fighting the crisis, not the international organizations. And so what we say about the globalization, there's like a stopping globalization as a process, and saying that we should understand that the globalization is bringing a lot of make states weaker and bring a lot of issues, and bring a lot of issues which we need, and threats, of course, a lot of threats for the state. And we'll see. But in the vice versa process, what do we know about this crisis, and what we know about the post-COVID world? That maybe cooperation is only one of the primary exit from this crisis. What we know that classical theories of international relations, like realism, explaining that this crisis explain this crisis in the term of the government want to the security is the main principle of main idea of the realism as a theory. So this, and we see right now that each country making this quarantine, they're trying to secure themselves. So we see maybe the idea of realism is popular, and realism means that countries can cooperate. Neo-realism saying for us, which is going broader in the states relations, that neo-realism saying is the country can cooperate but no integrate because of the security is the main reason, and cooperation is making you weaker, and it's mean that you need to so new neo-realism give us explanation of the situation. But in vice versa, and but as a supporter idea of institutionalism and neoliberalism, I would say that it's a bit not so easy, and not so neo-realism and neoliberalism. It could not explain a lot of things. So we should to compare all of these methods and try to understand what will be the post-COVID world first, and second, we need to think about that in case of what will be more effective to uh, fight with this crisis. So for me, if we go deeper in case of the COVID-19, what we can see. First of all, it's a very interesting thing that for taking the UN as the organization, the biggest multilateral organization in the world, where is all government. What we see now and realist theory saying that it's explain this. We see the paralysis of the UN Security Council. Security Council is don't do anything, and we can say that in case of some pandemic, Security Council don't do anything because, for example, they have a resolution about Ebola in the fighting of Ebola. So, and what is the problem? The problem is the fight between the United States and China in this UN Security Council. This is the biggest country in the world, and the crisis, what was starting from the trade wars after the Trump came to the power, is go deeper in case of crisis. It's an explainable thing because crisis always make faster protests. So we see there's some disagreements between countries, and crisis make it more fast. These disagreements more make these disagreements more deeper. So and it means for us that the not cooperation between these two countries paralyze the UN Security Council work and show us the classical thing that both countries try to find this, try to secure themselves and fighting, and it's mean that cooperation isn't effective way, and in case of the crisis, we coming back to the real paradigm, will not cooperate. But what give us institutionalization theory of about institution theory? They give us that multilateral organizations, intergovernmental organization, like World Health Organization, become the leader, make the leader in fighting of this pandemic. Of course, they have a lot of criticism. Mr. Trump criticized them, stopping financing, but still, most of the countries take these ideas of WHO, take the protocols of WHO, and try to listen them, try to do what they suggest, and go on and go on. And WHO, it's one of them trying to be a leader in this crisis. And then one thing what we know about this, why they more successful in compare of United Security Council, for example, because this is intergovernmental organization. It's an independent institute inside of the it's a UN body, but independent institute in case of that the people who work there. This is the bureaucracy. They are not under the supervision of their own countries, so they are independent. They can they make their decision by themselves, because first of all, they're professionals. They work on this sphere. When we vote, the organization vote the general director of this organization, the idea is based on his professionalism and his independence. So we see how this intergovernmental organization is showing us that the organization which do not have the independent body is more effective. And this is the first thing. We see where we can go in case of fighting a crisis. We need this kind of intergovernmental independent institution which show their effectiveness. It's first thing. And what we see in this case of cooperation, the WHO, for example, we know 3 weeks ago was, or 2 weeks ago was for example, another good example of cooperation. Turkey countries, Turkey Council countries has a meeting by video conference. The president talk about how they can do, what can they do to help each other, what can they do to stop the crisis. And we see that they invited the general director of WHO to give some suggestions, to give some help, explain what's happening, what's going on. So we see this cooperation, particular in this between these countries, and we see how these countries. Yes, we know that globalization process stopped in case of they close the border, but another thing we see how most of the country had rare resource, but still try to help. We know that Uzbekistan sent humanitarian aid to the Afghanistan, to the Tajikistan. Kazakhstan sent humanitarian aid to the Tajikistan. We see how, for example, Turkmenistan tried to help Afghanistan. They opened the border with Afghanistan to supply their food, supply to water and other goods, because and it's doesn't matter of the coronavirus cases in Afghanistan. So we see how countries try to help, and we know that Eurasia Economic Union countries also have the same video conference meeting and try to find same policy to help each other. Try in case, of course, first of all, an economy, because economic union they try to find a solution to support the businesses inside of these countries. But still and it's different cases. For example, in ASEAN countries have the video conference to try to find the measurement to help each other to stop this COVID. So we see regional organization in different parts of the world try to find out measurements and help each other. We saw criticism of the European Union, and we saw that critics of the European Union saying, aha, you can see that they close borders as a national countries, not as a European Union. But in the same time, the Brussels working, we see how they create the measurement. Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, today, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen give the press conference and say that what the measurement will do the European Union to stop the coronavirus. And of course, we see that some countries starting to open the borders, reducing the quarantine measurement, but still European Union try to figure out and to help to each countries. And the problem is that the European Union has the low budget. I mean, not low budget, it's not correct. The budget of the European Union Commission is lower than the national government budget, so they cannot give money, cannot help, and it's showing the limit of this particular organization. At the same time, and it's mean that European Union will be do next step or to more integration, create a bigger budget for European Union Commission or not. So this is a very interesting question, and we don't know where it go. It's very interesting, and we need to watch what going on after COVID-19. The second thing what we show but I give you some regional aspects. I give you some example of the WHO as a leadership, because, for example, we see the problem of this coronavirus losing United States their superiority as a country, as a superpower country. They cannot be a leader, and we see the main problem. Cooperation between United States and China now it's very difficult to say, and it will be very helpful for the decrease the effect of this pandemic. But still, and of course, it will be better if they start to cooperate in fight with COVID-19. But yes, we see the problem of leadership. We see the closing the borders. We see we probably understand that after the COVID-19, a lot of supply chains which was destroyed would not bring back, because country understanding that depending on this supply chain need to create oven close manufacturing process, and it can create the new tariff war. But and it will be very, very, very bad. But another can create uh, starting the terror war and something like that. We have the same experience of the Spanish flu, where they're starting the closing the borders, reducing the, creating the tariff barriers, and this is one of the reasons of the World War II. But second uh, example, historic example, and now we are using the applied history methodology, which this Graham Allison, the father of the one of the father of this applied history methodology, uh, explain us. This methodology give us some ideas how we can, what can be the after the crisis. We know that after the World War One and after World War Two, countries try to create some multilateral organization. The League of Nations, United Nations. The first experience wasn't successful. They started the World War II, but still a lot of bodies what was in League of Nations go further to the United Nations. And but very interesting thing we see, the problem of the in the bodies of United Nations, bodies where the each government has own interest. It's like a United Nations Security Council. But in case if compare with the organization, the United Nations body will work the international stuff, we don't see such a problem. That mean maybe the international organization will reform, and maybe the integration process understand the process of creating independent body for more effective work. So we see to what kind of some conclusion I can do this. First thing, of course, globalization wouldn't stop, and they will be create different forms. And we see the example of this globalization, how the globalization helping us. For example, a lot of we see competition between medicine organization to create the vaccine, but at the same time we see how they work together, because all researching is the open sources. They try to bring this what they know about this vaccine in open source, and it's a communication between the medical society. It's a very interesting process. So the big competition is important, but still they are very responsible and try to help each other to find more quickly the vaccine. It's a first thing. So we see the importance of globalization. The second thing, we understand that globalization could not stop, because it will be go further on an economic scale and something like that. We need to help to trade. But in what is very, very important in international affairs, what what will be the multilateralism and integration, of course. So we see here the importance of regional organization, as example of Turk for the Turkey Council countries, or example of the Eurasia Economic Union or ASEAN or something like that, or other organizations. Sorry. But at the same time, we see the some problem of the United Nations because of bad example of a paralyzed of United Nations Security Council. So maybe we see the trend to, we know before the COVID-19 was a trend to creating the regional organization. More important, we create regional organizations. We see this trend, and probably this trend be more how would say more popular, because crisis like a COVID-19 always make these trends make this trend faster. So what it's mean? It's mean maybe the idea of the clash of civilization, Huntington book, will creating on some different regional cooperation is bringing more popular to create the regions. We can work in the regions more effective because we can create bodies. We don't need a lot of explanation. We see the problem of the leadership in the world. So regional organization don't need the leaders. They because we don't have a leadership, we can it's always create a lot of different regional organizations. For example, we know the problem of leadership in Asia, Asia Pacific region helped to create Trans-Pacific partnership without United States. It's, for example, in 80s and 70s, we can imagine that countries of Asia Pacific region create some organizations without United States and without China. And that's a very interesting process to creating regional organizations. So what this crisis showing for us now, first of all, globalization wouldn't go anywhere. It's okay, it's understandable, it's the part. But what about the part of political cooperation here, political sphere of globalization? So I think in my habit opinion, uh, it wouldn't go anywhere. It will be more important for the countries. They showing that they show that fighting with crisis, it's more important to do it together, showing how they can help each other. And of course, it's important in case of the fighting with the crisis after the COVID-19. So sorry for if I take it longer than it should be. Thank you for your attention.